African Americans live all over the United States, but some places have more African Americans than others. About 14% of people in America are African American. States like Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, and Alabama have some of the highest African American populations. Big cities like Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. also have many African American families living there. These places are important because they have lots of African American history, culture, and traditions. There are many famous and influential African Americans who helped change history. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and he helped lead the civil rights movement by fighting for equal rights. Rosa Parks was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, and she became famous for refusing to give up her seat on the bus. Harriet Tubman was born in Maryland and helped many enslaved people escape to freedom through the Underground Railroad. Barack Obama was born in Hawaii and became the first African American president of the United States. Oprah Winfrey was born in Mississippi and became one of the most famous talk show hosts in the world. African Americans have helped make America better in many ways. They have been a big difference in music, sports, science, and art, government, and history. Their bravery, talent, and hard work have inspired many people. Learning about African Americans is important because it teaches about fairness, courage, and how people can change the world.
In 1619, a Dutch ship brought around 20 enslaved Africans to Jamestown. This started the era of the slave trade, which quickly spread among the American colonies. They were mainly used for planting and harvesting crops like tobacco and cotton. Africans were chosen as laborers because they provided a cheaper, long-term source of labor compared to the Europeans. Several million Africans were forcibly brought and transferred to America in some of the worst ways imaginable. Many of the Africans died during their transfer across the ocean. This transfer was referred to as the Middle Passage. At this time, slavery became a big part of the American colonies, particularly those of the southern regions. In the 17th and 18th century, several million enslaved Africans were used for agricultural purposes on different farms. With time, cotton farming became more and more popular, which meant they needed more and more slaves. By 1860, about 4 million slaves had been brought into the country. Instances of increasing resistance, coupled with political instability, are what accumulated the Civil War. The Emancipation Proclamation came in 1863, freeing enslaved people in Confederate states, and slavery was officially abolished by 1865. However, even though they were freed from slavery, they still faced discrimination and segregation in society. Despite this, they kept moving around in the country, searching for better economic conditions regardless of the discrimination they faced. All in all, African Americans have played an important role in creating the culture of America, whether it is through politics or leadership roles.
African Americans and their struggles and problems they face. One of the most common ones is just the overall stigma and stereotypes assumed and spread all over the internet by revealing the bad side of them, as people scroll social media, creating a fatigue in their own mind about African Americans. There is also the major factor of a large percentage of African Americans born into states, areas, or places where reputation for orderly and good behavior is uncommon. So growing up in an environment where it nurtures and grows bad behavior alongside normalized small crimes like stealing, it creates and further grows that stigma. Not to mention, there are still highly discriminatory people in the world who think African Americans are a lower class or individual in general. The other problems that no one really pay attention to is the treatment, the way some are raised, where it largely affects how they function in institutions and public places. And while they might not function well in institutions, they can also affect and add on to that as well, since they're in schools where the funding is poor and they can't control hundreds of rowdy, unruly, or troublesome kids. So it might be hard to escape and learn with the constant distractions, as well as African Americans' view on health and the other things like diets affecting health is nearly unknown, as most families don't have the time, money, or the knowledge to cook healthy meals, which contributes to health problems and bad living. So for African Americans, a lot of it leads up to areas and social class, since wealth, location, and people can influence you heavily in young stages of life. And locations, if they are bad, can urge more of it, and wealth.
With all that said, we can draw a line between all these problems. bringing up the idea of constant struggle for equality in the United States. As far as the most impressive monuments for this fight are concerned, Martin Luther King's memorial is placed. That reflects both the efforts of the people and their achievements. However, one should bear in mind that their fight is still not finished. To understand how deep the roots of discrimination were and how many changes should be made in order to make the situation better, only one needs to look at the court cases and laws that exist in that time period. The case of Plessy versus Ferguson, for instance, proves that discrimination was an integral part of people's lives. Namely, the Supreme Court decides that the laws about separate but equal were constitutional. The result was a new system of oppression based on inequality. Thus, we must conclude that it took people lots of efforts and years of hard work to prove that discrimination is a thing that cannot exist anymore. However, discrimination has found other channels to thrive in society today. That is why the case of Louisiana versus Callis is so significant today. The particular cases address whether the drawing up of voting districts has been done in such a way as to reduce the political power of black individuals. Although segregation can't be legal practice today, it is a clear example, like representation and voter suppression, that discrimination can occur in more covert ways. The significance of this case is to illustrate the fact that there is always areas where further advancement needs to be made in society. While the United States has achieved many positive advances towards equality, it is evident that every generation needs to fight their own battle against discrimination. Ultimately, the legacy left behind in the civil rights movement and leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. is far-reaching. However, the more relevant contributions lies in the fact that it leaves people with a sense of social and political responsibility.